Shalom, shalom. This is your brother Yashamai from the GMS Atlanta camp. Before I get into this message, all praises, all glory, and all honor to Yahweh, Ba'asham, Yahushai, Ba'asham, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, whom will and teach well. This can be a 12 tribes overview going into specifically the tribe of Benjamin, which are the so-called blacks from the West Indies, specifically those from the Jamaican islands and the Bahamas. Now, when you go into the map of West Indies, it'll tell you that the West Indies are a group of islands between the Caribbean and the Atlantic Ocean. And of course, we know that Cuba is a tribe of Manasseh. Haiti is the tribe of Levi, and the Dominicans are the tribe of Simeon, and the Puerto Ricans are the tribe of Ephraim. So, through the process of elimination, Benjamin is dealing specifically with those in the Jamaican and the Bahamas. Now, that's not to say that their seed isn't scattered throughout, but when you hear the tribe of Benjamin, it's going into those people from these specific land masses, or if that's the correct term. But hopefully, this lesson is edifying. Got a couple scriptures queued up, and so we'll just get into it. This is Genesis 49, verse 1. And this is, of course, the chapter that goes into describing the 12 tribes, but specifically describing the 12 tribes at the latter days. So Genesis 49, verse 1 says, And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Now, who are the sons of Jacob? Well, Jacob is the progenitor of the 12 tribes of Israel. All right, so he's calling the tribes together. And, one thing that gets brought up is, by naysayers is, well, how do you know that these are it? How do you know? Well, first and foremost, it's through the Spirit, and also it's prophecy. Because the last part of this scripture says, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days. Now, you go into the word last days, that word is Acharayath. And the definition that we're looking at here is after part, the end, the latter time, or the prophetic or future time. So the Genesis 49 is prophesying unto the 12 tribes of Israel, who they would be, where they would be, so that we could point them out, I guess. I know there's a better word than that, but identify. So we can identify who the 12 tribes are. And so we know that, the understanding that we come into, we know that according to Jeremiah 17, verse 4, says, And thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thine heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thine enemies in the land which thou knowest not, for you have kindled a fire in mine anger, which shall burn forever. And this is, building on that point that Genesis 49, verse 1 said that we would know what would befall us in the last days. Why is that? Because we discontinued from our heritage. All right, and then we were scattered, so we didn't know who we were. But then, according to Baruch 2 verse 30, it says, For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves. And that's where we are now. We are still in the land of our captivity, which is spiritually known as Babylon, spiritually known as Sodom, spiritually known as Egypt. But it's America, right? And Scripture says that in the land of our captivities we would remember ourselves, and through the elders and the apostles and our officers, right? We're able to remember who we are. Specifically in this message, the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so from there, let's get some information on Benjamin, and we're gonna start at this is Genesis 35, and we're going to start at verse 16. And they, well, 15. And Jacob called the name of the place where the Most High Yahweh spoke with him Bethel. And they journeyed from Bethel, and there was but a little way to come to Ephrath. And Rachel travailed, and she had hard labor. And it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said unto her, Fear not, thou shalt have this son also. So Benjamin is the son of Rachel. Verse 18. And it came to pass, as her soul was in departing, for she died, that she called his name Benoni, but his father called him Benjamin. Okay, so when you go into the blue letter of Benoni, it goes into son Bon Awanya, which is son of my sorrow. All right, now it's Bon Awanya because there is no O in the Hebrew, right? And there is no uh, 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 um, well, yeah, really, there's just no O in it. So like, but we know that Benjamin's name, uh, we know that the son's name here, Benjamin, would ultimately be Benjamin. All right, and that's Banyamyan, which means son of the right. That's what his father called him. And then when we jump down to verse 24, it tells us that the sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. So Benjamin, you do a quick search here, but Benjamin is the youngest of the 12 tribes. Just did a quick search here, and I know that there's some scripture that we can get, but just a quick search here. We use these tools that we have to our advantage. But Benjamin was the youngest son of Jacob, man. All right. Let's see what I got pulled up next here too. Okay. Now, when you go into the tribes, we understand that there was a breaking off, right? And what's the history of it? Well, the history of it, according to 2 Kings 17, verse 6, is that in the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria and placed them in Halah and in Habor by the river of Gazan in the cities of the Medes. So we know that the northern kingdom, which are the so-called Hispanics and Native Americans, we know that they were taken into captivity by the Assyrian Empire first. All right. So the southern kingdom, which are Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, they were left in the land of Israel up until 70 A.D. All right, and the reason that we point this out is because we're going to get information on Benjamin that is going to show you that they come from the southern kingdom. So hopefully you can put it together through the Spirit, and you can see that Benjamin is of the southern kingdom, specifically the West Indies. But if you bear with me, we'll go into Matthew 24, verse 15. And now, when Yahushua was on the earth, Yahushua, the majority of the Israelites that were around Yahushua's time were the southern kingdom. Why? Because I just showed you that prior the northern kingdom had already been taken into captivity. So what you would call a so-called black person were the only Israelites during the time of Yahushua, the southern tribes. Again, Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. But then what ended up happening with the southern tribes? Matthew 24, verse 15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. So this is talking about 70 AD, right? In the midst of the 7 weeks. I think it's in Daniel 11 or Daniel 12. But it's talking about when he caused the oblation to cease. And that's when the temple was destroyed. That was during, starting from 67 AD to 73 AD when it was finally utterly destroyed, and Yahushua, he prophesied about it in this same chapter, said that there wouldn't be one stone left over. And I think it's also mentioned in I think Luke 19 19 or 18, somewhere around there. But the point here is that it's talking about 70 AD. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. So, what happened after 70 AD? The Israelites that weren't able to escape, they got slaughtered. But the other Israelites that were able to make that escape flew into the mountains or flew into the wilderness, which are the western part of Africa, and that's where they hid. Matter of fact, I might have Revelation. Yeah, I got it right here. Revelation 12 pulled up. Verse 3. No, verse 4. And his tail. Well, no, let's just start at verse 3. It says, um, and 2, and she being with child cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. Now this is Israel. Now who's that woman with child? It's Israel, and who is she? Uh, 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 who is the child that was travailing in birth? That's going into Yahushai. All right, and we know that he came from the southern kingdom, specifically the tribe of Judah. And then it says, and there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his heads. That's talking about the Roman Empire at that time, talking about Esau Edom during the time of the Roman Empire. Verse 4, and his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. Now, his tail drawing a third part of the stars of heaven goes into the southern kingdom, man. And then it says that the dragon stood before the woman which was ready to be delivered. That's going into King Herod, right? Because he he ordered the wise men to tell him where they were so that he could go and end the life of Yahushua, right? But the point that I want to get to is here, verse 6. It says, and the woman fled into the wilderness. That's going into Africa, where she has a place prepared of the Most High that they should feed her there 1,260 days, right? So the southern kingdom went after 70 AD, went into the western parts of Africa and hid among the heathen. And then what ended up happening? They got sold into slavery, right? So with that understanding that Benjamin was still in Israel, the tribe of Benjamin, Levi, and Judah were in the land of Israel during the time of Yahushua and 70 A.D., and that they fled into Africa. We know that they were then taken captives, right? That they were then sold into slavery. And when you go into Wikipedia and you read into the Afro-Caribbean history, it says Afro-Caribbean history is a portion of Caribbean history that specifically discusses the Afro-Caribbean or black racial populations of the Caribbean region. Most Afro-Caribbean people, now this is the point, are the descendants of captive Africans held in the Caribbean from 1502 to 1886 during the era of the Atlantic slave trade. So those Benjamites, right? Those Benjamites are it says that they're descendants of the Africans, which we know, they are not descendants of Ham or Cushites, right? But that's who they hid amongst, man. All right, and then I got Deuteronomy 28:68 pulled up, because this was also prophecy, right? And the Most High Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships. Now, Egypt here's going into America. This verse here is specifically talking about the transatlantic slave trade, which we just read, that the Afro-Caribbeans, Benjamin, the West Indies, are supposedly descendants of captive Africans, which we know they are not, because that's who they hid amongst. But it says that they would bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spoke unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again, and there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. So the Benjamites fulfilled this prophecy during the transatlantic slave trade after they hid amongst the heathen. Okay, so now we have the understanding of who the Benjamites are. We have the understanding that the southern kingdom was sold into captivity, so-called blacks. Now let's start to dig into the identifying factors when it comes to Benjamin, when it comes to the tribe of Benjamin. Okay, so this is Genesis 49, verse 27. It reads as follows. It says, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. And look, I just want to take a quick pause here and give double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and the officers as well who feed the flock. Because man, as a Christian, if you read this, um, you would read right over it. But again, the water Yahweh, the water Yahweh Shai, and double honors to the elders and the apostles, because through them we have the understanding that we're going to get into now. Okay, now there's a lot of meat in this, but it seems very plain. But Amos 3:7 says he showed his secrets unto his servants the prophets, right? Matthew 13:10, unto you is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom of heaven. To them it's not. Hey, the water, man. But let's get the understanding on this. This is Genesis. Let's get the first part. It says, Benjamin shall ravine as a wolf. Now, when you go into the word ravine, it says an act or habit of preying. So it says ravine, and then also too, I want to make mention that according to the officers, uh, the officer I know who shared this overview, um, he we know that Esau, likes to change words. He likes to hide things, such as the word ruddy, right? When you go into the description of some of the Moors, or some of the kings in Spain, they are described as ruddy, but that word has since been changed. But this word raven goes into an utterance. All right, that's what that word goes into, man. But I found a definition um, that also kind of links up with the utterance as a wolf. All right, but the original word for raven was an immature utterish, or kind of like trying to make something out. All right, but it says Benjamin shall basically utter as a wolf. Now, what do wolves do? Wolves, before they attack, wolves howl, and they also howl to assemble the pack together. So what does this mean? It says Benjamin shall howl or speak an utterance as a wolf does. Well, let's go into that. One thing about the Benjamites is that prior to coming into the understanding of who they were, they had already been coming out with songs, which is that immature utterance, right? Which is what's that other definition here? Which is the act or habit of preying, right? Because wolves, they howl before they attack, and that's very spiritual, because before the attack on Esau Edom, now that's a spiritual attack, okay? That's matter of fact. Let's get Revelations 11, verse 5. So right here it says, and if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must be in this manner killed. Now, this is the attack. So before we woke up onto the truth of who we were, Benjamin was already howling before the attack. Now, how was he howling? He was howling by making songs like Chant Down Babylon. And this is an album by Bob Marley and the Wailers, which the Wailers, goes back into ravining, that immature utterance, to howl like a wolf, man. Let me see here. There's this other song here by Linval Thompson, Down in the Babylon. And again, this was before they knew who they were, man. And so, hopefully, the Spirit is beginning to show you the raving of a wolf, the crying before coming into the truth. This is a song by Bob Marley. It says it's called Zion Train. Now we know Zion is Israel, to Zion monument, right? Here's another song by Desmond Irie. Says Babylon must fall. Now we know that Babylon is talking about America, talking about this entire system. And then we go into I Wayne by Burn Down Sodom, which again, according to Revelation 11, verse 8, this place is spiritually known as Sodom, man. So this is how Benjamin was ravening as a wolf. Before coming into the truth, he was given that immature utterance, not knowing, because he was just making these songs without knowing that Benjamin was making these songs, not knowing that they were Israelites, but it's because all things are through the Most High, man. This is Romans 10, verse 2. For I bear them record that they have a zeal of God, but not according to knowledge. And that's right on with these songs that they were putting out. They understood without understanding the task at hand through Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai. Even though they didn't know who they were, they had a zeal, which that's what Romans 10, verse 2 is going into, man. Let me see what else I got here. Okay. Well, let's go back to Genesis 49, verse 27. So we got the understanding that Benjamin shall ravine, give that immature utterance as a wolf, right? And in the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. So in the morning he shall devour the prey. So what's the morning talking about when it goes into when it mentions the morning? Well, you pull up Revelation 22, verse 16. It says, I, Yahushua, have sent mine angel to testify unto you these things in the churches. I am the root and the offspring of David, and the bright and morning star. So Yahushua is the morning star, because what's going to happen when Yahushua comes? When Yahushua comes, that's the end of Esau's kingdom. 2nd Ezra 6, verse 9. Esau is the end of the world. Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. So when you go back to Genesis 49 and 27, it says, in the morning he shall devour the prey. So when upon the return of Yahushua, he shall devour the prey. Now, who's the prey? The prey is Esau. And we know that Jeremiah 51, verse 20, says that thou art my battle axe and weapons of war, for with thee will I break in pieces the nations, and with thee will I destroy kingdoms. So we know that the elect men are going to get these superpowers. That's why Jeremiah 51:20 says, thou art my battle axe, and he's going to use us to break in pieces the nations. So now we're starting to put this thing together. It says, in the morning, so upon Yahushua's return, he shall devour through the spiritual powers the prey, which the prey is namely Esau, Edom, but also these other heathen nations mentioned in Psalms 83, right? And then furthermore it says, and at night he shall divide the spoil. So what's it mean when it's talking about at night? Well, at night is the end of Esau's kingdom, man. 1 Thessalonians 5, verse 2 says, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Most High, Yahweh Shem Yahushai, so comes as a thief in the night. And then I want to get a day of darkness, not light, Micah 2:10. If my internet will work. Amos 5. Yeah, so Amos 5:18. Again, going into that night, into the darkness, because it's going to be a day of darkness for 2/3 of our people, but namely Esau, Edom, and these heathen nations. Amos 5:18, it says, woe unto you that desire the day of the Most High. All right, going back into the morning star when he shows up. To what end is it for you? The day of the Most High Yahweh Hashem Yahweh Shai is darkness and not light. So that's going back into the night, man. So now we have the understanding on that. That Benjamin, through his immature utterance, which are those songs, and it was immature utterance because he didn't know who he was ravening as a wolf by crying out before the attack, and which we got in Revelations 11, the attack on who? The prey, which is Esau Edom. And in the morning, when Yahweh Shai returns, he shall devour the prey, because the 144,000 of Benjamin, some of them are going to get superpowers, and they are going to be the Lord's battle axe. And at night he shall divide the spoil. And that night is going into that dark day for you heathens, because scripture says, my servant shall eat, but you shall be hungry, man. So your darkness is our light. Your downfall is our uprising. All right. So let's get some more information on some attributes of Benjamin. Now these Benjamites, the ones that don't know who they are very heavy into the Rastafari idea. And when you look into the Wikipedia, it says Rastafari is an Abrahamic religion that developed in Jamaica, the West Indies, during the 1930s. So again, it's an Abrahamic religion, going back to that zeal without knowledge. It is classified as both a new religious movement and a social movement by scholars of religion. Now, we know that this is where our people go off, going back into that zeal without knowledge, because no social movement is going to save us. Deuteronomy 28 says, no man shall buy you. Our salvation comes from Yahweh Hashem, Yahweh Shai, and scripture also says that he will not meet thee as a man. Right? He's not coming down here as a man. He's coming down here as a spiritual being. So it says, there is no central authority in control of the movement, and much diversity exists amongst practitioners who are known as Rastafari, Rastafarians, or Rastas. It says right here, Rastafari's beliefs are based on the interpretation of the Bible, going back to that zeal without knowledge. Central to the religion is a monotheistic belief in a single God, referred to as Jah, and we know that name's going off too because there's no J in the Hebrew alphabet, right? His name is Yahweh, and his son's name is Yahweh Shai, who partially resides within each individual. That's kind of on, even though they're still going off, because 1 Corinthians 3:16, know ye not that you are the temple of the Most High, roughly paraphrasing it. But it says, Rastas accord key importance to Haile Selassie, Emperor of Ethiopia. Between 1930, he was regarded as the second coming of Jesus. So he's an emperor of Ethiopia. And we'll just get this information here, and then we'll probably just close out. This is where they completely go off, because they said that this Ethiopian man was the second coming of Yahweh Shai. When we know that Yahweh Shai comes from the tribe of Judah. So the spirit of the prophets is subject unto the prophets. We all come back to the same tribe. That's why Yahweh Shai was Isaac, then he was Solomon, and then he was Yahweh Shai. All right, it's all the same bloodline. He didn't go into the body of a Moabite, and he's definitely not going into nobody, Ethiopian. I mean, to the contrary, when the northern kingdom was taking it into captivity, and they brought the Ethiopians into Samaria, those Ethiopians were getting lion sick on them, man. So this is where our people go off, man. But I think the point is made. I had this other scripture here. This is Deuteronomy 28, verse 64. It says, and the Most High shall scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even unto the other, And there thou shalt serve other gods which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. Now this is going into, and I think I got it pulled up, into the Jamaican diaspora, because even before they came, um, uh, 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 before they came into slavery too, they were some of them was like after they came into the transatlantic slave trade. Some of them went back to the United Kingdom, which that proves that prophecy there, that they would be scattered from one end of the earth unto the other. Starting from the so-called Middle East unto America, and then back to the UK. It says the United Kingdom, and particularly London and Birmingham, have a strong Jamaican diaspora. An estimated 4% of Londoners are and 3% of Brummies are wholly or part of Jamaican heritage. All right, many are now at least second, if not third or fourth generation Black British Caribbeans. Damn, it's a long definition. You black, but you British, but you Caribbean. Fucking, they're they're Benjamites, man. Currently, the fastest growing ethnic minority group. All right, now, through the Spirit, we know that Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, told Abraham that his seed would be innumerable as the sand of the sea, man. And now here they are. It says they're currently the fastest growing ethnic minority, man. So I think the point has been made, man. It goes into the ravening, into the goes into devouring Esau. Um, Shows you that even through their misunderstanding of calling themselves Rastafaris, that it still goes back to Abrahamic religion, and that they get the name off, but at least it's somewhat, uh, close. But I mean, it's still off. I mean, there's only one name. You can't call on Jah or Yah. It's Yahweh, as mentioned right here. Yahweh, Yahweh. But hopefully this lesson has been edifying, man. And I want to end off by giving double honors unto the elders, the apostles, and the officers of Great Millstone, because this message was beautifully taught by one of the officers here in the Atlanta camp, the officer Aina. And I thought that this would be very edifying. So I wanted to make sure that everyone has access to it. And I'm not saying that I'm the only one that made this message, but we're all aware that certain people get fed, and certain people get small parts, and certain people hear things better from certain people. So brothers know what I'm saying, man. So hey, until the next one, man. Shalom.